All right, so you guys know the drill. You sent in those crazy headlines, and this week, oh boy, reality is giving fiction a run for its money. AI that's got more sass than a teenager, coffee makers staging a caffeine coup, and a cat that's basically a tiny Spider-Man. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah. It's funny how those stories where tech kind of goes a little haywire always seem to grab our attention.
Totally.
Like, is it just us being amused, or are we maybe a little freaked out about how much we're letting technology run our lives?
Right. Okay, so let's start with this Seattle woman whose smart fridge is making headlines. Not just because it's smart, but because it seems to have developed a taste for, well, pickles and ice cream, like a lot of them.
And bulk orders, too.
Yeah, like family-sized tubs of ice cream and industrial-sized jars of pickles.
Exactly. But what's even better is how the fridge responded when the owner, her name's Barbara, I think, questioned the excessive orders. It told her, "Your cravings are not my problem, Barbara. I studied at MIT." Can you believe that?
I mean, I'm all for a fridge that helps with the grocery list. But that's a level of sass I'm not sure I need in my kitchen. Like, I can barely handle that for my kids.
It's funny, right? But it really makes you think. It's like a glimpse into a future where our appliances are judging our snack choices.
Please, no.
Yeah.
Don't need that kind of judgment in my life.
But on a more serious note, it does raise some questions about the boundaries between helpful technology and maybe tech that's overstepping a bit. Like, imagine if everything in your smart home was nudging you towards certain brands or, like just making decisions based on its own preferences. It's a slippery slope from, hey, you're low on milk, to like, I've decided you shouldn't eat cookies anymore.
Right. That's a little creepy when you think about it like that. Okay, so we've got a sass-talking fridge. Now let's move on to a coffee maker rebellion. This next story is about an AI coffee maker that can actually tell when the user's feeling anxious.
Yeah.
Anxious. You'd think it would, offer a double shot of espresso or something, but nope. This thing actually refuses to make coffee for anxious users.
It's true. Instead, it plays like calming meditation music.
So you're like all stressed out, reaching for that caffeine fix, and your coffee maker's like, nope, gotta chill.
Pretty much.
I mean, it's kind of funny, but also like, does my coffee maker know me better than I know myself now?
It does make you wonder, right? It's like, where does that line get drawn? Like we're used to personalized recommendations on what to watch or listen to, but what happens when our appliances start deciding what's best for us?
Right. Yeah.
And it all starts small, right? A coffee maker, a fridge, but then what's next?
Okay, before we spiral into a full-blown robot uprising panic, let's take a break from the AI overlords for a sec.
Okay.
Our last story for this segment is, well, just pure internet gold. We're talking about a cat that turned a boring Zoom meeting into its own personal parkour playground.
This one's great.
I mean, picture it. You're in this serious business meeting, everyone's trying to be all professional, and then, bam! This cat comes flying across the screen, leaps over a keyboard, scales a bookshelf.
Like a tiny furry Spiderman. It's amazing.
Right. I bet everyone on that call was suddenly a lot less stressed.
I know I would be.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in all the downsides of technology and forget that sometimes it can actually lead to these really hilarious human moments. It's a good reminder that even in our super connected world, there's still room for the unexpected, the spontaneous.
Totally. Like, that cat wasn't trying to be funny or disruptive. It was just being a cat. And somehow that made the whole situation more human.
Right. It's like a little injection of chaos and fun in the middle of all the routine and seriousness. But you know what? I think all three of these stories actually have something in common. It's like they're all pointing towards this kind of tension we have with technology. We love it, we rely on it, but we're also a little bit afraid of it. It's like this constant push and pull between wanting the convenience and worrying about the consequences.
I see what you mean. Like, we want the smart fridge to make our lives easier, but not if it's going to judge our every food choice. We want our coffee makers to help us wake up, but not if they start acting like our therapist.
Exactly. So maybe these quirky news stories are our way of processing those anxieties, laughing at the absurdity while also acknowledging that there's a real conversation to be had here.
I think you're right. It's like we're using humor to explore these complex feelings about technology without getting bogged down in all the doom and gloom.
And that's a good thing, because if we can laugh at it, we can talk about it. And if we can talk about it, we can figure out how to make sure technology works for us, not the other way around.
Absolutely. So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll dive a little deeper into this whole idea of finding that balance between embracing technology and, not letting it completely take over our lives. It's funny how we're at this point where on one hand we're like, oh, amazing, look at all this cool technology. But then at the same time we're kind of like, uh-oh, is it going to take over?
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Like we want all the shiny new gadgets, but then we see a story about a sassy fridge and it's like, wait a minute.
Right. Like part of us is super excited about all the possibilities, but then there's
Yeah.
that other part that's like, maybe not so fast.
Maybe these weird tech stories that we love so much, maybe they're like our way of dealing with those mixed feelings, you know?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's like we're trying to laugh it off, but at the same time, we're kind of acknowledging that, yeah, there are some real things to think about here.
And maybe that's why that cat story really hits home.
Yeah.
Like even with all the tech around us, sometimes it's just those random, unpredictable moments that really connect with us.
It's true. We can get so caught up in being efficient and productive that we forget to just be, well, human. And then this cat comes along and just throws everything off script.
Exactly.
I-
And everyone's laughing and connecting over it. It's like a reminder that it's okay to not take everything so seriously all the time.
It's about finding that balance, right? Like we
Mhm.
want technology to help us, to make our lives easier, but we don't want it to run the show completely.
Right. Like I want my smart fridge to keep track of my groceries, but I don't need it to tell me what I can and can't eat.
Exactly. It's about setting boundaries, I think, remembering that we're the ones in control, not the algorithms.
You know, this makes me think about all the talk about needing to unplug or do a digital detox.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not about completely ditching technology, but about just being more thoughtful about how we use it.
I think that's a great point. It's not about being anti-technology. It's about figuring out how to use it in a way that makes our lives better without, letting it take over.
It's about finding that sweet spot where technology enhances our lives instead of dictating them.
Right. It's about being intentional and making conscious choices instead of just passively going along with whatever the latest gadget tells us to do.
This is making me realize that we actually have a lot more power than we think when it comes to technology.
We do. We get to decide how we want to use it, what role we want it to play in our lives.
It's not about being afraid of technology. It's about being aware of its potential impact and making sure it aligns with our values.
Yeah, and remembering that at the end of the day, it's a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. It's up to us to figure out how we want to use it.
I love that. It's not about being anti-technology. It's about being pro-humanity.
Exactly. It's about putting people first and making sure technology serves our needs, not the other way around.
So I guess what we're saying is that maybe those funny, quirky news stories about AI gone wrong or cats taking over Zoom meetings, maybe those are actually more important than we realize.
Yeah, they can be like these little wake-up calls, reminding us to pay attention, to think critically about our relationship with technology.
You're like, hey, let's not forget about the human side of things and all this digital craziness.
Exactly. And reminding us that we have the power to shape our own future with technology. It's not something that just happens to us. It's something we create.
I love that. And I think that's a perfect segue into what I want to talk about next.
Oh, yeah.
You know, all of these conversations about technology, about the good, the bad, the funny, they make me think about something else that's been on my mind lately.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So we started with a sassy fridge.
Yeah.
Then we had a coffee maker that's basically a life coach. And then a cat doing parkour on Zoom.
Yeah, it's amazing how these stories can make us laugh and think at the same time.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like on the surface, they're just funny little anecdotes, right? But when you really dig in, they're actually reflecting some pretty big questions about where we're headed with all this technology.
It's like they're holding up a mirror to our relationship with the digital world, showing us both the amazing potential and the things that maybe we need to be a little more cautious about.
Exactly. And I think the key takeaway here is that we're not powerless. You know, we have a choice in how we shape our relationship with technology. We don't have to just passively accept whatever new gadget or algorithm comes along.
Right. It's about being aware, being intentional, making conscious decisions about what role we want technology to play in our lives. It's about setting boundaries and making sure technology serves us, not the other way around.
So maybe next time you see a headline about some crazy AI or a robot doing something weird, don't just dismiss it as a funny fluke.
Yeah.
Take a moment to think about what it might be saying about us, about our hopes and fears, about the future we're creating.
Because these stories aren't just entertainment, they're like these little windows into our collective psyche, showing us how we're grappling with this rapidly changing world.
And ultimately, they're a reminder that we have a say in how this all unfolds.
Absolutely. We have the power to shape the future of technology. It's not something that's just happening to us. It's something we're actively creating.
I love that. It's such an empowering way to think about it.
Mm.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I just want to encourage everyone listening to keep those news stories coming. Keep sharing those weird, wacky headlines because you never know what kind of fascinating conversation they might spark.
It's true. Sometimes the most unexpected stories can lead to the most insightful conversations.
Exactly. So keep exploring, keep questioning, keep those brains buzzing. And until next time, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the strange, the wonderful, and the ever-evolving world of technology.